Hi, I'm Nicole Palmer, Realtor with United Real Estate.
And I'm attorney Scott Harper with Bluegrass Land Title.
Today we're going to cover a little bit about what happens behind the scenes at the closing table for your closing. So we're going to start with earnest money deposit. Earnest money deposit is something that I'll bring up when we write the initial offer on a home. Earnest money deposit basically means that you're super interested in the home. It shows the seller that you're really wanting to buy their house. But there's some misunderstanding about how that works though at the closing table. So Scott, tell me about earnest money deposit. What do you see with earnest money deposit at the closing table?
Sure. Earnest money deposit, sometimes known as good faith deposit, basically just saying, hey, I'm a buyer, I'm interested in that piece of property you got over there, would love to get it under contract. Here's a couple of dollars, okay, $500 to $1,000, just depends on the purchase price, that we want to have held in escrow as good faith that we are going to work towards the purchase of this property together, doing all of our due diligence to make that happen. So a lot of times there's a couple of workarounds or ways that this can vary, but a lot of times Bluegrass might hold that earnest money deposit. So you'll get under contract, then you'll write a check for $500. It'll be payable to Bluegrass. You'll send it to our office, and then we'll hold it in an escrow account until your closing day. On closing day, we are then going to take that money and we are going to apply it to the amount of money that you were supposed to bring for closing. So if your cash to close ends up being $10,000, right, you would only need to bring $9,500 because we already have $500 sitting in the bank.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about seller's concession. What does that mean, and what does that mean at the closing table as well?
Sure. So a lot of times you get under contract for a house. But the reality is that that's when the negotiations really start, okay? Sometimes you're going to go through an inspection window with the house that you want to buy, and during that inspection, you're going to see that there were some things that maybe need to be taken care of before you're willing to buy the house. Well, your agent negotiates with the other side, and you come to an agreement that the seller is going to actually give a little bit of money towards your closing costs as the buyer to help make up for some of the deficiencies maybe that the house had. So what ends up happening is you keep the same sales price, but on your settlement statement, you'll see that you get a credit from the seller, a seller credit, for a certain amount of money to go towards your closing cost. So let's suppose your cash to close without a seller credit was $10,000. You have seller credit of $2,000. Your cash to close would be $8,000. Plus, you have the earnest money of $500. Your cash to close is now $7,500.
Absolutely. And with both sellers and buyers, we can work together to negotiate what will be the best option as far as home repairs, what will be needed as home repairs, and how much money that we could potentially work with at the closing table to help provide the finances for the home repairs. So Scott, tell me a little bit about the commission check for the realtor. Tell me a little bit about what that looks like behind the scenes and how title handles commission check for realtor.
Sure, everybody loves this one. Basically, what ends up happening, and to avoid any confusion, it's important to understand for both buyers and sellers, you're only gonna bring funds to close for a specific thing. And that specific thing that you would ever bring funds to close for is cash to close, whether you're buyer or seller, okay? Now, there are gonna be a lot of expenses, a lot of fees that go into buying and selling a house, but you will only ever bring a check for cash to close. So, how does your real estate agent get paid? They get paid from the closing disclosure. The closing disclosure outlines all of the different fees that exist. The real estate commissions are gonna be listed on that form. You bring cash to close, it takes care of all of the other fees. We individually will parcel out the individual fees that come from your cash to close and your loan amount, and we will then give checks to the parties that they need to go to, including the real estate agents.
That way everybody gets paid appropriately, correctly, and they do this day in and day out. They know exactly what they're doing to help make sure your money from closing goes exactly where it needs to go and how.
That's exactly right.
So thanks for joining us, and Scott, thank you for that education on what all the finances look like at closing table.
Absolutely. Happy to help.
Enjoy your real estate journey.